When I was going to school at BC, I couldn't afford to live on campus, so I lived in West Roxbury with some family friends, the McDonald's. And Phyllis, the mom, one day when I came home from school, had made a big pot of chicken noodle soup. And she had asked me if I wanted some. And, in the past, I'll be honest, most of the chicken soup I had was really just from the cans and didn't really, like the condensed stuff from Campbell's. And I was just like, well, no, not really. She said, well, have you ever had homemade chicken soup before? And I'm like, and I thought about it. I'm like, well, no. She said, well, just try some. I was like, well, all right. So she had to stop me from eating pretty much the whole pot of chicken soup because I probably ate about half of it in maybe about a half an hour. It was so good. It was not at all what I expected. And as we prepare during Advent for the Christmas season, that's sort of what we have to recognize about Jesus. He was not what people were expecting. If you had asked the people at that time who the Messiah would be, their response would have been really simple. He was going to be a great man, probably one of the wealthy, one of the politically connected, one of the important religious leaders. And yet, Jesus was born in a small town. Yes, the city of David, but really ultimately unimportant. He was born of, quite frankly, two peasants. Two people in today's world who would have been considered completely insignificant. Joseph, who was a carpenter, really more what we might call today a day laborer, and Mary, uneducated, not wealthy, poor. They were expecting someone who would be able to stand up to the Roman Empire, to re-inaugurate the independent Jewish nation, to reinvigorate the faith. Jesus was not at all what they were expecting. And I think we can forget that point so easily. Because, well, we know who Jesus is. We kind of know the rest of the story. We know the impact that Jesus has had on history. And so we kind of get why Jesus was important, why Jesus is important. But in this season of Advent, we're preparing for the reality that Jesus is coming again. We live in the end times. We're not preparing for the end times. We're simply waiting for the consummation of Jesus' promise that he'll return. And the question is, have we run into the same problem as we come into our relationship with Christ? Is Jesus really not what we're expecting? Or better put, what do we expect about Jesus? That's the real question. The people at the time of Jesus got a Messiah they weren't anticipating. And I think many times in this day and age, and not just now, but through the ages, we still have a Savior that doesn't quite meet what we are expecting. But the truth is, and the important truth is, it's not really about whether or not Jesus is the one we expect him to be, but rather whether we can be the person God expects us to be. And that's the harder question to answer. And how can we answer it? And it's really simple. Are we prepared to truly face Jesus? Are we prepared to live the life that Christ called us to? Are we ready to take up the cross? Are we ready to love unconditionally? Are we ready to turn the other cheek? Are we ready to actually be the disciple that Christ wants us to be? And ultimately, that's what the season of Advent is about. It's not about buying gifts, though that's a perfectly fine thing to do. It's not about the Christmas tree. It's about preparing ourselves to be the disciple Jesus wants us to be. It's not about getting the Jesus we expect, but becoming the disciple Jesus expects us to be. God bless.